Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video I wanted to do this video doesn't end until I find a 5-star video. Specifically I'm gonna go through all the book series that I have yet to finish, and I'm not gonna end this video until I find a 5-star in the series that I've been reading. But I basically have a list of all the series that I'm in the middle of and the books that I need to read. So I'm gonna just go down that list and I'm really excited to finally finish reading them because it's about time that I do. So the first book that I'm going to be reading is the second book in the Kingdom of Cards duology. So this is the last book that I have to read and it's called When Night Breaks. But my prediction is that I'm going to give it a 3 or 4 stars. Oh my god guys, I forgot to tell you my rating system, which is like the most important part of this video. 1 star is I finished a book, I did not like it at all. Sometimes I'm like, should I give this book a 0 star? But I finished it and because of that I will give it a 1 star. 2 stars, it's a little bit complicated. I felt like I may have enjoyed this book at one time, but there was something about it that, I don't know, maybe it was boring, maybe I didn't like the characters. So there's some part of me that's a little bit conflicted. I both liked this book and I also disliked it. 3 stars is purely just like I enjoyed this book but I don't really feel anything. I may have read it and I finished it, but it's definitely not a book that I would think about again or reread again. I would probably just read it once, get it off my want to read this, and then never think about it again. 4 stars is mostly reserved for books where I started off enjoying it. Maybe something about the beginning is not hitting it for me, but then I continue on reading the book and maybe there are certain reveals and plot twists that amazes me. This is kind of for fantasy books compared to other genres because I don't really know. My star ratings is based off the genres that I read, but usually it's something where it keeps me reading and it's exciting and I'm able to consume it. But there are maybe little things that I may criticize about the book or some things that may annoy me a little bit, and 5 star is just pure enjoyment. There's some 5 stars where yeah, I can see all the faults this book has, but when I sit down and I'm literally obsessed with reading it, I cannot stop reading. I dream about this book, I want to pick it up, I want to reread it. That's when I know that it's a 5 star, and it's basically a feeling of being utterly consumed by a book. So I've read a little bit of When Night Breaks and so far I'm really enjoying it. I feel like it's the vibe that it's giving me that makes me really want to read it. If you like 𝐦𝐮𝐴 and the Night Circus, you would probably really like this book because it centers around magician and obviously magic and just performance in general, and there's this whole mystical, whimsical element of it which really reminds me of 𝐦𝐿 and the Night Circus. I'm in the middle of reading When Night Breaks. I think I have 27% left of it. To be honest, I'm struggling to get through it. As I mentioned before, I really like the vibes, I really like the writing. The pacing of it is so slow. There are certain things that are happening that I felt like should have happened earlier, and at this point I'm just kind of over it. As I mentioned, really like the writing. However, I don't really like slow-paced books. I need something fast and I need something with high stakes. So honestly, it's a me problem, not the book's problem. While reading this book, I also read Normal People by Sally Rooney for another video, and I was gonna try and finish this book the whole way through after finishing Normal People, but I just can't. Like, I feel like I need to switch back and forth between books. So I started reading Terms and Conditions, which is the second book to the Dreamland Billionaire trilogy. I have been wanting to continue on with that series for a while. I just never did because I've just never been bothered to actually pick up the rest of the series, and so far I've read more in 1 hour than I've read in this book. I'm enjoying Terms and Conditions because it's very fast-paced and it's not very difficult to read. However, there are certain things that are happening in this book that I feel like are already giving me the ick, and when they actually kind of get together or maybe halfway through the book, I feel like I will start to get annoyed with the characters and just the storyline. Just tell me why this book is nearly 500 pages. A romance book doesn't need to be that long. I finally finished reading When Night Breaks, and as I mentioned before, I really liked the vibe and the writing of this book, but honestly the ending was a little bit disappointing. I feel like the ending is what makes up for the book. If the book is bad but the ending is good, for me I would give it like one extra star, maybe half a star. This whole book, especially the ending, was kind of disappointing. At around the 20% mark, we have all the things that are going on, but I honestly didn't really understand what was going on. It was really confusing because we have this whole antagonist and we get introduced to him in the beginning of the book, but then he just like disappears until the last 20%, and we get that he's evil, but I felt like his character wasn't built very well because his past just wasn't explained fully. So I know he's supposed to be the bad guy, but I don't see him as a bad guy, and the whole part of them kind of defeating him and everything, it just felt very anticlimactic because what was even going on in that place? I swear they weren't even doing anything, and he's supposed to be like the king of this place, like the devil king, and yet he literally does nothing. I don't know why people are so afraid of him. He's just sitting there, and also there are parts of the plot that I feel like is not completely explained. There are certain things where I'm like, why is this happening? Nobody is telling me why this is happening. The issue with this book is that it lacked a lot of depth. In terms of the overall story and the plot, it wasn't the best. I also felt a lot of the characters in general were very flat. Like they weren't well written, especially with the romance. I really love the two characters, but I just felt like it wasn't developed enough. I ended up giving it a 3 stars. So as I mentioned before, I'm still reading Terms and Condition. I literally have not read any more from when I last updated you guys. It was literally this morning, so I only just finished When Night Breaks, which I'm really happy about, but I'm gonna continue the rest of Terms and Condition. I finished reading Terms and Condition, which I read this book so quickly, and it's just funny to see the difference because I struggled so much when reading When Night Breaks, and then this book I read in 2 days, but in the end I give it a 3 stars. It's just like a romance book. There's nothing really original about it. It's very fast paced, it's fun to read, which is what I needed at the moment because I felt like I needed some type of break just from fantasy books in general. There were certain things in this book that gave me the ick. For example, just certain descriptions when they mention I gnashed my molars or something like that. I was like, why do you want to hurt your teeth so badly? You know, my worst fear are my teeth dropping out. So I don't know why you want to grind your jaws together. Stop it. And there are always little things that I don't like about, I guess, the way that romance books are written. It's so annoying when they have this grumpy character and then we have the sunshine girl, but then the sunshine girl always has empathy towards the guy, and oh, he's making me fall in love with him all over again. And I question, why are you even in love with him in the first place? I don't get what's so good about this guy, but you do you, I guess. I'm starting this book called Rise. Apparently I've read the first book, but I really don't remember anything about it. I didn't even know that I read this book until I checked my Goodreads, and I was like, what series have I not finished? And apparently I read this book. Hopefully reading it would jog my memory a little bit. All I know is that it's about 3 sisters and they're kind of fighting for the throne, so it kind of reminds me of 3 Dark Crowns in some sort of ways. After reading the first chapter, I actually do remember a little bit, but it's barely anything. Basically, we have Michaela and Rosaline, and reading them together, it awoke a memory in me because I remember them. And I remember thinking that they were cute. So I read a smidge, a tiny little smidge of Rise. To be honest, I don't know if it's just because I'm not in the mood to read YA fantasy, but I honestly don't want to read the book. Not saying that I want to DNF it because I definitely think that I will enjoy it. It's just right now, it's taken me some time to get into the book. I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna read Final Offer, which is the last book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. After reading the second book, I was like, yeah, I'm in the mood to read a romance book just because it's very fast. But I did also just want to finish reading the series, and I was very curious to see what was going to happen with Cal's story, especially because we get a little hint of it from the second book. I finished reading both Final Offer and Rise, so let's talk about these 2 books. With Final Offer, I gave it 2 stars because I think I deluded myself into thinking that this trilogy was good. So I went back to the other 2 books in the series and I ended up giving the whole series 2 stars because I read it and I was kind of like, yeah, it's fast paced, it's easy. I did enjoy it, but then I thought about it and there were just certain things that kind of pissed me off about the books. I feel like the writing in this book was so bad. If I were to write a romance book, that's how I would write a romance book, because I'm not meant to be an author, okay? I'm not good at writing, I'm only good at reading. But there were just certain scenes that were written so unnaturally that I cringe. But you know when a writing is so bad that you're reading it and I don't know, I just can't fathom it. I also finished reading Rise and I ended up giving it a 2.5 stars. I did enjoy it. It was a very easy read, but it was also very slow. I don't know if it was meant to be slow because I felt like certain aspects were supposed to be a little bit high stakes. For example, there is this mystery surrounding the heir who is kind of threatening the three sisters who are actually the heirs to the throne, and they kind of have to figure out like who is the heir. I guess like a bunch of mysteries and like betrayal and stuff like that. So I expected it to be a little bit more exciting, surprising, suspenseful, but honestly it just felt really flat and I can't tell if it was supposed to be slow or if the plot was just written badly. I wouldn't say that it's a bad book. I did enjoy it, but there are some factors where I was questioning a little bit. So I picked another books to read, and the first one I wanted to read was A Crystal of Time, which is the second book in the School for Good and Evil, The Camelot Years. I've been wanting to read this book for a while. I read the first one last year, and look, I feel like Sophie and Agatha, their character development regressed, but this book was very entertaining. It was predictable, but it was just fun to read about their adventures and just, I guess, the issues. I don't know, the way that the characters acted and communicated with each other was frustrating, but at the same time, it was kind of funny to see their downfall. The covers are so gorgeous, but I've been wanting to finish the series for a while, so I'm just trying to get through it. This book is honestly a little bit frustrating because I swear it's giving me some sort of secondhand embarrassment. There are certain scenes where the characters are speaking and I'm like, maybe you should shut up, because it's, I don't know, the scene literally gives me secondhand embarrassment and it's somewhat cringy, but so far I am really enjoying this book. It's around 600 pages, which is the longest book that I've read in a while, so I was a little bit nervous starting it because I wasn't sure if, you know, I would be able to get into it. It's very similar to the first trilogy of Sophie just having really bad taste in men, but I think this time it's easier to get into because we're very familiar with the characters and the overall world. Do I really think that we needed another trilogy? No, because I feel like authors who do that, it isn't really the best. Another thing is the author literally had the perfect setup for Sophie and Agatha to be in a romantic relationship, but instead they're fighting over a man. You cannot tell me that Sophie is not literally obsessed with Agatha, because literally the whole entire time her whole thoughts about Aggie. And the trust that they have in each other as best friends, even though they're so opposite for each other. I don't know, if you guys read the series, like, you cannot tell me that they're not in love with each other. Their chemistry. But no, instead they're with men who, honestly, they have no place in the book besides being cowards and needing to be saved. You cannot tell me that they're not in love. Okay, listen to this quote. She knew she should wait for him, which is Tedros, who is like her one true love, that she should be the peacemaker between her friend and Prince like always, but Agatha was already latching onto Sophie's arm, the two of them whispering and cuddling as if they've never been apart. Sophie brushed her hair out of her best friend's face, smiled brilliantly at her, two girls forging through a dark wood. That scene was literally more romantic than anything Agatha and Tedros went through. Or Tedros, however you pronounce his name. I finished reading A Crystal of Times and it was so entertaining, so fun. The plot is all over the place, okay? There's a lot of plot holes, however, it is also so good because every chapter left me gasping. I swear every chapter left at a cliffhanger and there were so many revelations and plot twists, but the reason why I'm giving it a 4.5 stars instead of a 5-star is because there were certain things about the book that kind of just annoyed me, which I mentioned already before, such as the characters sometimes being a little bit cringy and how similar it felt to the first trilogy, and also the characters and the lack of development that they should have had from the last trilogy. I'm really excited to read the last book, which I'm gonna be reading right after this because I need to know what happens and I'm excited to read it, and who knows, maybe the last book will be the 5-star because this book was very close. I took a little break from this video because I had another video to film, but I started reading One True King. Honestly, at the beginning I felt like I was struggling, which happened when I read The Crystal of Time as well. I'm going to push forward because even though the beginning is always a struggle for me to get through, the story does end up very entertaining, and already I can sense that stuff is going to happen because I swear deaths of certain characters always make me so upset. But there are things going on which I'm very interested to read. I also started reading another book because I used a random generator just to pick out what book I should read next, and my thought process is to read both 𝐦𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐬 and this book back to back. The book that the random generator picked was The Map from Here to There, which I read the first book a long time ago, so I don't really remember what happens in it, but it is a contemporary YA romance book just about high school and going to university and I guess discovering yourself. And so far, it does seem like a cute little book. I finished reading 𝐦𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐬 and I ended up giving it a 2 stars because honestly the whole book was a mess. The plot was all over the place, the characters and their development sucked, and the ending as well. I sat there when the book finished and it wasn't even, oh, the ending was so good that I just couldn't believe what I read. It was more like the ending was so abrupt. It didn't even feel like it ended. It felt like they just cut the story off short and that there was supposed to be something else. But I honestly feel like the author should have stopped after the first trilogy. I don't know why he continued on with it because this overall book was just a mess. We have Tedros, who is the one true king. He has to learn how to be confident in himself as the ruler by going through a bunch of trials. But I hate his character. He's honestly so useless. He's a coward. Every single time Agatha has to save him. And what is his purpose in the book? I don't know. We have a lot of different couples and just like a lot of characters in general, but I feel like in this book they dumb a lot of the characters down so that the main focus is really on Tedros and just his character development, whereas I didn't really care about him. And I really loved Agatha and Sophie's friendship, but again it just makes me sad that they had to find 2 guys to fall in love with. But I finished with that, so I finished with the whole School for Good and Evil and 𝐸𝐻𝐸 series. I'm halfway through The Map from Here to There and I don't really have any opinions on it because it's basically just a high school coming of age story about a girl who is going to university, trying to figure out which university that she goes through, but she's also suffering from trauma and post-traumatic disorder because her boyfriend passed away because he drowned. I don't remember what happened in the first book, so a lot of the references in this book I feel like I'm missing out. But we also have Max, who is her boyfriend, who is honestly such a sweet guy and I love him so much. And we basically get him and her friendship group and just the, I guess, development of her life continuing forward. So I finished reading The Map from Here to There and I did enjoy it. It was a super easy book to read through. There were certain parts that did make me cry a little bit, made me a little bit emotional, especially because of the things that the main character went through. However, I think I'm gonna give it a 3 stars because while I did enjoy it, as I mentioned before, there was definitely issues with the main characters and the way that she communicated with her friends, which is understandable. But when it came to the romance, in a way they were cute. I loved Max and just the way that he, I guess, handled everything, but in a way I also felt like it was sort of toxic because of the issues that they had. I did really like the representation of friendship in this book. I loved seeing her with her friends and just how they support each other, how they fight and make up. The next book that I want to read is volume 2 of Guardian, and I read the first book I think last year and I completely forgot the fact that the whole official translation is completed. I picked this book and I'm really excited to read it, especially because of the way that the first book left off. It wasn't like a super huge plot twist or a cliffhanger, but it definitely made me really excited to progress with the volumes. But this book, from my memory, it's set in the city and we have the main character who is a ghost hunter and he meets this university professor because of this certain thing that happened, so they cross paths and then after that they continue to, I guess, meet each other and kind of help each other in these circumstances that they are in. It's a really fun book, I guess, about ghost hunting or like demon hunting and kind of trying to cleanse that. So if you like books like that, you would really enjoy this. I finally found my 5-star, which honestly I kind of predicted that this book would be my 5-star, and it is Guardian Volume 2. After I finished it, I literally started reading volume 3, which I'm in the middle of. But I just love it because it's about ghost hunting. We have a bunch of different characters who I love reading about, and just their, I guess, relationship with each other, because they all work in this special investigation force. We have also a lot of lore behind the main characters and just their past. And I really like the romance because the main character, Zhao Yulan, is very forward and flirty, whereas the love interest, Shen-Wei, is more shy and he always gets easily embarrassed by things. So it's kind of fun to see, I guess, their banter and their interactions with each other. Usually with romance, they are very, in a way, subtle. It's mostly in the backburn because we are focused on the fantasy world and the world building and just a bunch of different other plot lines. But in this book, it is very prominent, which I enjoy, and it's just really cute to see them together. Looking at all the series that I have finished, I have actually gone through quite a lot, which I'm very, very happy about. You know, doing this video ended up being a good thing, even though I kind of struggled. In total, I have finished reading 5 series. I'm in the progress of finishing Guardian, obviously, but that's kind of all. I'm really happy because in the end, I did manage to finish quite a lot of series, especially because this notion list, it was empty. Literally, I wrote down all the books and this whole page was blank, but now we finally have some completed series. If you guys are struggling to finish series and you want to force yourself, I guess, to get into them, definitely would recommend doing this. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe and all that jazz, and I will see you guys in another one. Bye!